License and registration, he can sense your aggravation.
On the head of the fallen angel.
When the world is muttering under the floorboards, stomp even louder.
Time.
Let them know you are alive today.
Or unhum.
Did you know that your hands came with a ripple effect?
Whisper tones unraveling like silk.
Blood, sweat, and tears win by any means poetry.
Sway, look at me. Is a piece of the pie too good for me?
Some may call it rock the mic. We call it poetry.
The duality. There is light. I see it. It penetrates, permeates darkness. That thing without which light has no meaning. Ungoverned darkness would eviscerate light. The uplifting, life-affirming light. Why must these two maintain such postures? Could they not coexist absent conflict? Such an existential dilemma is disheartening and denies both their quest as victor. Seemingly only through eternal challenge, conquest, and conquer can either be sated, can either be without the other. For without the one, the other has no relevance. Is this humanity's dilemma? Without the dual, the duality, the challenge, the conflict, we are as meaningless as light without darkness. Indeed, good, compassion, charity can have meaning and relevance without their counterparts. So let us take hold, grasp firmly within our very soul such illustrious qualities. Can we not remake ourselves absent these eternal dueling dualities that have seemingly created voids within us, unsatiable voids that mar and mock our divine nature? Surely our existence calls for a new way? Or are we fated to yearn for what cannot be, to exist in a world that is conflict-free? Hello, and welcome to Sojourn with Words. I'm your host, Sistah Joy, and we're right here on CTV, based in Largo, Maryland, and I hope many of you have been with us before. Today, we're excited. Of course, you know, we stay excited at CTV. We're excited to be sharing with you a wonderful poet who is Virginian. From Virginia. She is actually Virginia's Poet Laureate, and I'm speaking of none other than Mattie Quesenberry Smith. First of all, welcome, Mattie.
Well, thank you so much, Sistah Joy. I'm thankful to be here.
Oh, you're very welcome. Now, please confirm, am I pronouncing your name properly, Quesenberry?
Yes, that's it, Quesenberry.
Okay, wonderful. Well, just so that our viewers can get to know you a bit, let me share some information about our guest poet. In November 2024, Governor Glenn Youngkin appointed Mattie Quesenberry Smith to serve as Virginia's Poet Laureate for the term 2024 through 2026. Following this appointment, Smith received an Academy of American Poets Laureate Fellowship 2025-2026 for her statewide poetry project, Perseverance and Resilience, Supporting Veterans Through Poetry, which is unfolding now throughout Virginia. In December of 2025, Smith earned her Doctor of Philosophy in Curriculum and Instruction from Virginia Tech. Her academic research and creative writing explore myriad overlaps between science and humanistic questioning, such as the role of critical reflective writing within innovative technology and engineering, design-based problem solving, and the nature of chaos, uncertainty, and light. How's that? Smith's chapbook, Mother Chaos, Under Electric Light, published by Finishing Line Press, explores the second law of thermodynamics, chaos theory, and the uncertainty principle operating within nature as a backdrop for what is deeply personal. Smith's most recent poems appear in New Verse Review and Phi Kappa Phi's Forum magazine, among other printed and online publications. Smith is an adjunct instructor for writing and rhetoric at Virginia Military Institute, where her colleagues selected her to be a member of the NCAA's All-Southern Conference faculty and staff team for the 2024-2025 academic year, in recognition of her leadership and teaching excellence in writing and rhetoric at Virginia Military Institute. Well, she lives on a ridge at the foot of Little House Mountain in Lexington, Virginia, where she and her husband have raised 10 children. Okay, now I hope you took all of that in, because that was more than a mouthful. But we wanted our viewers to know the caliber of artistry and excellence, academic and creative, that we bring to Sojourn with Words today. Again, Mattie, welcome to Sojourn with Words.
Thank you, Sistah Joy.
Oh, you're very welcome. Now, I know that, I'm a native Washingtonian based in Maryland, but you grew up in rural Virginia. Talk a little bit about what that has meant to you and how that parlayed with all of what we just heard about you as the intellectual, creative being that you are.
Sistah Joy, I did grow up in rural Virginia. I grew up outside of Blacksburg, Virginia. My mother was from Catawba, Virginia, and my father, his family originally from Floyd County, Virginia, and Carroll County, Virginia. So I grew up really the daughter of a carpenter, and he worked often in town supporting Virginia Tech's professors, just doing odd jobs there. I grew up out in the mountains, really, on the weekends and sometimes weekdays, fishing and hiking through the woods, going up to Mabry Mill and hearing the old-timey bluegrass music. Oftentimes I was barefoot through the summer, certainly learned how to home can. I think that those experiences are central to my interest in science, to be honest, and technology also. I think from a science standpoint, being out in the woods, being left to sort of toy with the spiders and spider webs or the fish that you just caught on the side of the river really fed my curiosity and helps me think about science in real world terms. I like to think about what's going on with science innovation and then make metaphors out of it. So I still do that, and I enjoy that quite a bit. I also think that growing up outdoors has given me a real sense of place. And again, that makes you a little more aware of the palpable details of life.
Absolutely. Now, clearly, you are one that has embraced STEM, but of course, we typically think of poets with regard to STEAM, because we have that arts element always central to our journey as poets. But when you talk about integrating STEM and then the humanistic studies, how does that balance for you with regard to the creativity that is expressed through your intellectualism, shall we say?
You know, STEM is not isolated from the arts and humanities. And so I think that a lot of people are entrenched in their silos, and there's not a lot of discussion across sectors when it comes to the arts and sciences. And I don't see the two separated at all. Both hinge on inquiry, questioning, concerns, real human needs, and both depend, strangely enough, on faith to problem solve. So in STEM, you learn a lot of details, and of course, a lot of difficult math. And on the other hand, a lot of artists and writers have to learn their craft as well. They have to, so I don't see them separated at all. As far as the rhetorical situation is concerned, like the place where we all have to enter into discussion, even if we're doing that through poetry, I believe that let's look at the two halves, let's say, each depends on the rhetorical situation, understanding where they are, why they're there, what are they trying to do, defining the natural real world aspects of that, et cetera, et cetera. So I can't see them separated, frankly.
Okay. Well, I think that explains to our viewers just how it would be that one with such an outlook as a scientist would be embraced as the state poet laureate, which I think is phenomenal. Absolutely. I have to admit that although I'm a native Washingtonian, I spent many of my formative years, I think from age 5 to 12, on a farm in Montgomery County, and there was a creek out back, and we dig down and the crayfish and those exploratory years were instrumental in that curious brain. So you're absolutely, I get it. I totally get it.
Sistah Joy, when we had at Harding Avenue Elementary School in Blacksburg, Virginia, when we had we were allowed to go outside, and when we took our little break there, we were able to go and play in the creek and catch crawdads.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. And those were fond memories. Trust me, those are definitely very fun. Okay. Well, now let's move a little bit forward, because I understand that you have a veterans poetry project, Perseverance and Resilience, supporting veterans through poetry. Talk to us about that.
So when Governor Youngkin nominated me as poet laureate, appointed me really, sorry, that's the wrong word, appointed me as poet laureate, he said, first of all, he validated the role of poets by saying poets are really responsible for, communicating the joys and lamentations of humankind. So I thought that was a pretty even-handed approach to poetry. And he said, I said, well, what do you want me to do about that? Like, what am I going to do as poet laureate? And he said, whatever you want to do. So the first thing I did was go on a little bit of a listening tour with the members of the Poetry Society of Virginia. So I joined Kathleen Decker in Williamsburg, along with other people who belong to the Poetry Society of Virginia, all assembled there to celebrate Ed Law's life. And Ed Law was a veteran. So I listened to that. And then Wayne David Hubbard, who is also a member of the Poetry Society of Virginia, came up really after I gave a reading and sort of stayed late really and said, it's so interesting to me that when I went to the Library of Congress to support them in their memoir project, I noticed there was a dearth of veterans poetry. And I thought, okay. So I believe I'm going to put that spark properly where it belongs, and I would say with Wayne David Hubbard. And then I started to work with them, the members of Poetry Society of Virginia, to design a project serving veterans through poetry, and called it Perseverance and Resilience, supporting veterans through poetry. And we just finished the first phase of that on the 9th. where we celebrated the winners of the contest that we had sponsored through the Academy. Oh, let me step back. So after we designed this project, Kathleen Decker said, well, why don't you apply for a fellowship from the Academy of American Poets Laureate? And I thought, yeah, that's probably not going to happen because we have like a month to turn that around. But then I said, Kathleen, that's not going to work. And then 2 days later, I decided, why say that? Yeah, why not just give it a shot and move into that uncertain realm we all claim we have faith to do, right?
Okay.
So we put it together, and they accepted it and announced they had accepted it on August the 1st, 2025.
Okay. Well,
So,
now
yeah.
that we want to get to the poetry because time is speeding by, but
Yes.
you touched on faith and you've touched on science and poetry and metaphor. If you were to wrap it all up for a message to a young person coming to poetry, what message would you give them of encouragement, or just what message would you give them?
Sure, Sister Joy. I think that young people, yes, but anyone, when you have a new idea or let's just say one line comes to you for a poem, right? Just like when you have a scientific observation and you wonder, you have a question or you have a concern, I say, see it through to the end. So then you're going to have to, write in an uncertain place where you're not really going to have a lot of reinforcement necessarily or support in certain phases of creating that new poem, or, coming up with a study or whatever it is that you're doing, but you are going to have to endure that. And also we know cognitively, just straight up through what we're making of cognitive theory now, that when you're learning to do something, there are going to be backsets, there are going to be uncertainties, but we trust that we're going to pull something together there. We're an integrative people and we learn integratively. So at the end of the day, if you keep working on it, it will come. First of all, it will be realized, and also other people will understand it.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Well, we we know that there's much more we could delve into, but we want our viewers to hear your poetry. And Mattie, thank you for just sharing a bit about yourself so that hopefully our viewers can also have a chance to find you and follow you. And we know we're going to generate your contact information on the screen before this episode is over so that our viewers can contact you and hopefully find out about your books and your programs and your events where you'll be presenting. But viewers of Sojourn with Words, I am now honored to present to you my good friend and poet who is just somebody that I think many will look forward to understanding what in previous episodes is presented as STEM versus STEAM, and now we understand it's all one happy family. Please welcome and listen to the works of Mattie Quesenberry Smith, Virginia's Poet Laureate.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to begin with a very short haiku. They're all the same length, by the way, but anyway, the water washes. The water washes stones, smooth as time's sand-filled hour, everything glass sighs. All right, that was an opening there. I just wanted to talk a little bit about water and how water has, at the end of the day, a fairly corrosive and smoothing effect on everything.
Everything.
Yes. Morningside for Josie McElroy. And a glimpse of geese, something about glory crosses the blue-banked sky. Something about glory traces the jet's cool vapor trails, winging this blue-banked day. Something about time shakes and stirs until you want to say, surprised by sunlight, traceless geese slip across our blue-banked day. This next poem, the first poem obviously was about morning light. The next poem is about Petrichor. Sometimes my close friends and I like to talk about words. So one of my friends texted me, oh my gosh, I've got a new word for you, and I bet you don't know what it means. Petrichor. So I wrote this poem for my friend Price, Wilson Price Mears Clark. Petrichor. Rain spills on the cracked clay as I step out of the front door and speak petrichor. While the world sighs maidenhair ferns and stargrass along the creek, the world sighs bluebells and plump club mosses too. As the world sighs and soothes us, down the ridge twin fawns stoop and sip sweet, clear water as it trickles through dappled light. Often I think about all the poets and teachers who supported me through the years. So this next poem is sort of about an awakening I had about how so many people have influenced me through the years, especially as a young person who, I'm a first generation college attendee, so a young person who's developing their creative writing and, by the way, scientific wisdom or knowledge. So this is for a poem written for Eric Trethewey, Richard Dillard, Roseanne Coggeshall, and Max Sweeney. These are all the voices. These are all the voices carried downwind this morning, formal, informal, well-reasoned or not. Downwind we hear their clatter in the kitchen as they rip the curtains wide. These are all the voices carried to me this morning. They strive to let the daylight in as at the first crack of dawn. Then they trace its warm movement throughout the house. No one can deny this predictable pass from east to west. These are all the voices carried downwind in the morning. I try to remember them all at once. Eric, the pugilist, Richard, the poetic muse, Roseanne, the rolling stone. I try to remember Mac, too, that favored Texas quarterback who went east to stay in the bright lights of New York City. If I could lose all the senses, I suppose I pray it wouldn't be sight or hearing. These are all the voices carried down the wind, leaving the rest of us behind. But what I remember here brings it all right. And this poem is written for a close friend of mine who passed fairly early in life, a poet who taught at Hollins University, which is a women's college I attended, Roseanne Coggeshall, whom I mentioned before. And this is inspired by her. This is inspired by her discussion with me, and also her poem, Walking Polly's Island. Scandals. It is a scandal, sure enough, that the women in the doorway want the particulars, and we want the particulars too. Even I want to know the particulars that block the way to sweet, raw Christ. Tell me again that story about love, and don't leave out the details. This morning, I stepped into your world where you take the particulars for granted. Around the corner, you are waking up in your house while the steam rises from the pond across the field. Perched on the wires, bluebirds shake their feathers in the first sunlight, bright with excitement. The rattle is your cough as you wake and walk through your house, blind to time, blind to blue. As you clear the dishwasher, I hope you realize much has gone unnoticed. Unattended to, life has been in the particulars. Tell me that story again about love. Tell me, and don't leave out the details. Okay. I want to go on to read a poem about bluebells that grow in Hollow Lane at the foot of Little House Mountain, which is really a part of House Mountain proper. Okay, expectation in bluebells. Spring's crazy patchwork of praise graduates the mountain. Today we note 15 past the bloodroots, bishop's cap, larkspur, hepatica, toothwort, chickweed, ground ivy, buttercup, bleeding heart, coltsfoot, trillium, violet, periwinkle, mayapple, vetch, and bluebells. Bluebells. Ecstatic bluebells burst across the bottomland, rip the top off the hollow. An acre of bluebells burns radiant, scintillating, cool blue flames. These unreal intrusions elevate our expectations. Enraptured by blue, it was Flannery O'Connor who painted it in the eyes, the skies, that apocalyptic expectation suggested by celebrated and clustered prayers, as present as bluebells on the altar. Veiled in blue, their heads bow in this church of nods. In this church of nods, their bowed heads lift the lid, hasten an expectation veiled by blue.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Right.
Continue. I love that. Please.
Okay. So the next poem I want to read is about the barred owl that frequents our hollow. And the barred owl is an interesting creature because he sort of just watches you. And you wonder, what are you watching? Right? What does he see? Anyway, the barred owl. There is something here about love, something about your arrival. As you light on the oak and the creek echoes through the hollow, I am first to speak of this sweet sleep, a revival, closes our neighbors' doors and falls into deep ditches with delightful snowdrops and tiger lilies. Dark and well watered below, there is something here about love, something about your arrival. A redbud's leaf has fallen into the thicket by the ditch. Unrivaled by crooked vines, it hangs on a greenbrier gallows. I am first to speak of this sweet sleep, a revival. Tooth and claw retracted, you blink. A curiosity of deer high-dapples nightfall in the ravine, and in less than an hour fall deeper shadows. There is something here about love, something about your arrival. Caught in the middle of the thicket, a redbud's heart, high and hallowed, has been pierced by one thorn's tooth, while you oversee our hollow. I am first to speak of this sweet sleep, a revival. The oak hopes for the same thing we do, light through the window. The silhouette of a friend standing by the door, joy beating quick time against our barred breasts. There is something here about love, something about your arrival. I am first to speak of this sweet sleep.
Wonderful, wonderful. Mattie, thank you so much for sharing your wonderful poetry. Thank you for being a guest for Sojourn with Words here on CTV. Can you tell our viewers how can they be in touch with you? What is your contact information, your preferred means of contact?
Thank you for that, Sistah Joy. So there are 2 or 3, but the best one for now is www.veteranspoetryproject.com. And then I also have my personal sort of poets address as well, and that is a WordPress site, www.mattiequesenberrysmith.com. And there's always VMI.
Okay. Well, we thank you. We want our viewers to know that Poets Laureate are accessible to the people. I know this as Poet Laureate for Prince George's County, Maryland, Poet Laureate Emerita for Prince George's County. We want to serve, and I'm sure that if persons want to be in touch with Mattie Quesenberry Smith, especially if you're in the state of Virginia, but not necessarily isolated too, be in touch with her and let her know how she can be a resource for you. We are the people's poet. That's what we're here for. So Mattie, thank you for all that you've shared. And hey, this is Sojourn with Words. I'm Sistah Joy, your host here on CTV. And as always, remember, when that idea comes to you, just pick up a pen, keep writing.